live television audience at home, let me recap how the CPC has operated this year up to the present time and provide a brief summary of where we are going forward. This is the first year we used a mandatory preliminary application, which was reviewed by our capable CPC staff, Carol Costello, Roger Fernandez. Project managers were assigned. That led to a final application that was prepared with the guidance of the project manager. We then visited all of the sites that related to CPC project proposals so that we would have hands-on and eyes-on knowledge of those sites. We had initial presentations by the project proponents, all of which were held in public and at which questions were asked about the projects and issues identified going forward. Some of those things we expect will be answered tonight. And we are now at the stage we are having our first of two public hearings that are televised. The second one will be tomorrow evening, and we will go through roughly half of the proposals on each of those 2 nights, addressing final questions, and letting the proponents and members of the committee and members of the public ask questions or make such observations as they feel are appropriate. At our CPC meeting next week, we will take a final vote concerning our recommendations to the town meeting. And in the interim, we will have blind individual preliminary votes not shared or discussed among the members, but sent solely to Carol Costello just to facilitate the conduct of our actual voting meeting next week. We would then anticipate that our recommendations would be reviewed by the advisory committee and be presented to the Board of Selectmen for their comments and their votes as to the particular proposals. And finally, the proposals will be included in the town warrant for voting by our town legislature, namely the citizens of the town of Hingham. And so I think in a nutshell, that describes the CPC process this year and for most other years. Anyone want to add anything to that at this point? Okay. The first order of business tonight is the approval of minutes from the December 8th meeting. I took them over. I didn't see anything myself, but I thought it required any revision.
I already sent any edits to Carol.
I did it as well.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from December 8th.
Is there a
I
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we come to the order of presentations tonight. For most of the presentations, we have slotted them for roughly 15 minutes each. We have a lot of work to get through, and so we would ask that proponents spend no more than 7 to 10 minutes, and if they don't feel that they need to spend that much time, that's fine too. And that will allow roughly 7 to 10 minutes for questions and discussion as appropriate.
In interest of helping proponents, I will give them a 1 minute left time so that you'll know. Be prepared, so you can sum up and then we can ask our questions. How's that?
We do have some flexibility. If there are important issues on the floor, we're not going to cut people off at the ankles over the course of a couple of minutes. But we will try to stick to the schedule as best as we possibly can. And I am actually the first proponent with respect to the CPC administrative fund request. We had basically put in as a placeholder the amount of $50,000. After meeting with our fiscal manager, Carol, this afternoon, we sharpened our pencils and we think we can reduce that to $45,000 and still have sufficient cushion for contingencies. So those expenses basically relate to the portions of Carol's and Roger's salaries that CPC funds, the office supplies and expenses. We have had in the past expenses for legal, although we have tried to build those into particular projects, but we don't know whether we will have some legal expense. So everybody has an expense recap that gives us the expected funds on hand as of the end of this fiscal year, and a projection of the expenses for the next fiscal year, which is basically what we are voting on. It incorporates a 10% contingency, and it also incorporates some room for some salary adjustments, which we will need to discuss at a future CPC meeting. So I'm happy to answer any questions about those, or Carol can answer questions about them if anybody has any questions. None? Okay. So I will note that we are permitted to recommend up to 5% of our revenues for the year. And so this recommendation is about $15,000 or so below the maximum we could recommend. So with that, we're already ahead of schedule. Can I yield some extra time to someone else if appropriate? And so if Andrea Young, if you're ready to go.
Yes, thank you very much. Everyone, I'd like to fire this up.
Andrew, do you want me to hand out your addendum?
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. Thanks.
And Andrea is going to address a proposal concerning various historic preservation items. And Kathleen Peters is the project manager on this.
So Andrea did a great job outlining the project in her initial presentation, and so I think today will be just a little bit abbreviated, but also too, based on some comments that had come up after her presentation, some committee members had raised some concerns that maybe there wasn't enough money in the budget, especially if some of the monuments that were being refurbished needed to be reseeded in the ground because they may have been disrupted through the snowstorms and kind of wear and tear in the ground shifting. So Andrea will also address that question and has slight adjustments to her request for funding.
Thank you. I will motor through this, since most of you've seen this, but the folks that don't have not. So,
Can you speak into the mic, please?
oh, certainly. I always wanted to be a country western singer. Sorry. This actually is, I'm Andrea Young, by the way, the administrator for the Historical and Historic Districts Commissions. And the Historical Commission is proposing this project this year to conserve town monuments and markers, and also some historic maps that are located within this building. So to that end, the project scope is basically this. The monuments and markers need to be conserved periodically in order to make sure that they remain in good condition. And so They will be cleaned, they'll be stabilized as needed, and then there will be protective coatings put on a number of them. And we have granite markers that are located, we have 5 of them that are included in this proposal. And you can see their locations there. They're all throughout town. We also have bronze plaques that need to be conserved. Many of them are have been corroded, some are scratched, and plus there's a lot of environmental debris that has discolored the plaques. So again, they're all located throughout town. Primarily, I would say, more near Center Hingham and also downtown. The bronze sculptures that we are proposing for conservation are the Iron Horse at Hingham Harbor, which hasn't been done. I think last time it was done was 2007 or 2008. It's been a while. And also the seated Lincoln, which you're all familiar with, I'm sure, both of these, North and Lincoln Streets in Fountain Square. The reason we do this, as I said, outdoor monuments are different from being in a museum because they're constantly on display. They're not protected by anything. And so they're affected by the environment. Also, dirt, soot, biological growth, bird droppings, and the coats, particularly of the granite structures, tend to delaminate over time. And then man-made damage, which I'll give you some examples of, are open the surface to corrosion. You can see the boundary marker at 1095 Main Street, which is right in front of, oh gee whiz, it's Lambert's, okay? Actually, it's on the lot next to it. And then the Peter Hobart plaque at Ship and North Streets that commemorates the landing of Peter Hobart and his band of pilgrims. The seated Lincoln needs some treatment. As you can see, over time, the old coating and the wax have a tendency to wear off. Needs to be repatinated, and then it will be coated with a protective material. And actually, it's bowling alley wax that they use as a finishing thing. Charles Keck, in the picture to the right, is the sculptor for the seated Lincoln. And the Iron Horse, which is a memorial to all of our war veterans, is always on display, proudly so. But you can see that it also poses some entertainment for people who have nothing better to do, I guess. And this K and B, hope they're still in love. There are a number of those all over the statue, mostly on the rear flank that faces the harbor. So I guess you can hide behind the horse when you do that. In addition to this is the new part. In addition to the original request of $35,000 for the monuments and markers, and $1,275 for the maps, which I haven't gotten to yet. The committee had asked me to look into resetting some of the markers, and I did that. I have in your packets, you'll see the letter from Josh Crane from Daedalus, and he estimates, and he always estimates high, I have to tell you, to reset 3 mile markers, which we determined through the pictures and his having been here and worked on them and looked at them over the years, would be $4,500 for the 3 of them to reset them. And by that I mean moving them back from the road in most cases, and also making them stand upright. Some of them are tilting. For that, he's going to need a police detail to direct traffic, and because they're all very close to the road, so that's absolutely necessary. So the additional request is for $5,111.55. So that moves it up to $41,590.40 for the total request. The the milestones that I'm talking about that need to be reset are located at Queen Anne's Corner, one at 210 East Street and one at 90 Main Street. This is the milestone at 228 and 53. I just took that today, by the way, and it's it's right up against the sidewalk, and so it's been moved around. I think, you know, due to all the work on the roads that occurred a number of years ago, as well as you know, other recent work at that corner. It's kind of in a precarious spot. I do have to say that the owner of that property, Nick Trafoni, who is developing it, has been very conscientious in terms of helping us to make sure that it doesn't, oh, thank you, get, that nothing untoward happens to it. These are the other two. Here's the one at 210 East Street. You can see it's right near the road. And this one in front of Old Ship at 90 Main Street. I'm bringing this in. It's just a side thing, and I better talk fast. Josh Crane from Daedalus has been asked to, by the state, to restore and reset the markers, the granite markers, the same as what we have, and others along the Boston Post Road. And I'm talking about the upper one. There were 3 of them that were initially in the mail route between here and Boston and New York City. So the Upper Post Road was originally an Indian path. The first mail ride was on January the 1st, 1673. And then Ben Franklin, who was postmaster at the time, ordered that markers erected at 1 mile intervals to regulate postal rates, because people were thinking they were being cheated. You know, and that the postal rates were willy-nilly. Legends on the sandstone markers, some of them are sandstone, some granite. The sandstone unfortunately has suffered. But anyway, we're not on the Boston Post Road, so I'm sorry, I digress. The historic maps are all on this, well, no, most of them are on this floor. There are 2 downstairs. This is a very small map showing the village of Hingham. You can see it's in very poor condition. This one also is the village of Hingham. These are both hanging in the community planning department. And this one is up here on the 3rd floor. Stains, creases, rips. No, I'm sorry, that one is on the 2nd floor, and it's a huge map. That one is right outside the building department. So, and a lot of people look at that, and so it's very popular. And also, and this one is upstairs, so right down the road here. So anyway, essentially, that's it, and thank you for your patience letting me run through this again. And whatever questions you have, I appreciate being able to answer.
Would you like to add anything, Kathleen?
No, and again, I think that, you know, is for the CPA, this idea of preserving history and, you know, is really the core value of the act, and to have these really valuable markers to, you know, going back to the 1750s is really impressive that they're still here, and that, you know, it's sort of good stewardship to take care of them, because if we don't, I'm not sure if anybody else will.
Thank you, Kim.
Questions or comments from any other members of the committee or the public?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I haven't talked directly, I've just followed the email. Yeah. And I guess she's coming with it, I'll turn. that exterior plan,
Yeah.
the outdoor rim.
The outdoor
Just
rim.
sort of, is that a contingency plan that if the hearing tomorrow didn't go well? That's what it's, hearings tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit too long.
That was the seventh. I have to look on my iPad and see.
Yeah. Sure. You made about my leave.
I'm sure I got it in my phone. It's faster.
So for those of us, or those of you who haven't met me yet, my name is Lonnie Fournier. I'm the new conservation officer in town. I've been here about...
Say it again, Lonnie.
Lonnie Fournier. It's Loni. I've been here about 3 months. Mary was double booked this evening, so she asked me to step in. She sends her apologies for not being here. And as I said before I started, there are no changes from the last time that this was presented, so it should look familiar to you. And I'll be speaking to you about the Trail Improvement Project. It builds on the Comprehensive Trails Plan that was developed by BSC probably over the last year or so. It was finalized this fall, and it was CPC funded. There are plenty of recommendations in the plan, and what we're proposing tonight is the first bite of those recommendations. It's taking care of the existing trails that we have out there, making them more accessible, and making them safer for the public as well. So our proposal includes purchasing kiosks for 13 different trails in Hingham, and also purchasing materials and tools so that the trails can be maintained and blazed. And what we mean by blazing is putting a line of paint on a tree so that people can follow the trail without a map. They realize that they're on a trail, and hopefully with the assistance of a map, they know where that trail will take them at the end of the route. And again, the goal of this proposal is to make our existing trail system more accessible and safer for the public. With the established kiosks, we'll be able to provide information to anyone using the trails. It can be interpretive information, historic facts about where they might be located on a given property. We'll also include trail maps to orient them on the property, and also provide them a sense of where this property is in relation to others in Hingham. So a town-wide map would also be useful to help people orient themselves. And it will also provide safer travels when they're on the property by blazing the trails and keeping our trails in good condition. There are a few that were surveyed. All of the trails in town were surveyed as part of the trail, or as part of the trail plan. Some of them were noted as being in poor or fair condition, and by purchasing tools and other materials, we'll be able to keep them, improve the condition of those trails, and then keep the whole system overall in better shape and safer for people to use. In terms of the kiosks, we're looking at two different styles. There's a trailhead kiosk, which is typically situated closer to the street or a parking area where people would first enter the property. They accommodate a little more information, so we would be able to include maps, any rules for use of the property, as well as interpretive information or emergency contact numbers if they would need that when they're out on the parks. And then the smaller double-sided kiosks are typically further into the property. They help reorient people as they're walking around and enjoying them. Key to these kiosks is a little map that says you are here, lets them know where they are, how far it is to get back to where they came from, things like that. We could also include small blurbs in there. If the kiosk is located next to a historic site, for example, we could include a little blurb or maybe some photos about why that site is so important. And the kiosks are proposed to go on trails that are located throughout town. These are some of the properties where they have identified kiosks would be the most useful to the public. And the trail improvements that we're talking about in terms of removing down trees that cross the trail or any sort of hazards on the trail would also be taken up across town. We're not focusing on any one property in particular. And the overall benefit to the town is actually just an improved user experience. It's both for residents and anyone who would be coming from out of town to enjoy our parks. The total cost for the project for just improving and installing the kiosks is just shy of $25,000. The Conservation Fund has confirmed that they'll contribute $5,000 to that amount, and then bringing the total CPC funding request down to about $20,000, so $19,962. I think that's the end of the presentation. Are there any questions? And Vicki was on the committee, so I open the floor to you.
Thank you, Maya.
Sure.
You did a great job for your first time this. And I just want to remind everyone on the committee and people at home who may not remember that last year we did fund BSC to do the entire trails assessment, and although we're not seeing it today, over 100 people showed up at some of the meetings. So we have stakeholders, people who want to volunteer, who want to be involved, all kinds of organizations, so not just townspeople. So this means a lot of volunteers from high school students to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, etc. This is something that everybody is involved with, so it's not a case of we're going to put up signs and who's going to see them. People are really excited about it, and the long term is that we hope that the Recreation Department will be able to have a website so that people will be able to, reach this online, and that's a long-term goal, and Ally was totally involved with all of the pieces of this, and Ally is with BSC, so anyway.
The Trails Plan itself is on our website right now, and there's also a hard copy in the Conservation Office as well. And the interest, it was finalized in October around then. The interest has not waned since then. People have been stopping in, they want to see it, they want to know what they can do to help, what are the next steps, what trails are we going to work on next. So it hasn't waned at all. I would say people are very excited about working on the trails, bringing them up to snuff with sort of more statewide standards for trail maintenance and presentation and blazing and that kind of thing.
I have a question. Have you looked into putting QR codes on the kiosk?
Yes, I think that was a recommendation in the plan.
Yes,
Go ahead.
that was something that Ally recommended.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Putting what on, Bob?
It's a quick recognition code. If
Smartphones.
probably
read them.
most people have seen them on airplane tickets. It's that weird looking
It's almost like
geometric
it's almost
design.
like a barcode, but it's in a perfect square, and smartphones can
and
read them.
If you have a smartphone, you could look at the entire trail plan.
No, I just didn't hear what she said.
Yeah.
And the goal is to be able to help people who are on the trails be able to give information back to say when there are, let's say a tree is down, and give information so that we
Sure.
can keep updating the trails.
Does the plan, this is excellent. I mean, the first thing is to make good use of what you have and inform people about it. But I keep wondering from when I worked on the open space plan about the possibility to fill in some gaps. Is there a second phase?
Sure.
To,
Yeah, the recommendations in the plan are pretty extensive, and we felt it was most important to take care of what we have first before we extended any trails anywhere or linked properties. But certainly linking properties is a fairly high priority in the plan itself, as well as providing better access through safer parking or just adding parking to some areas. There's a whole range of recommendations, but these were the first set that allowed us to take care of what we have first.
getting from here to there, so that there'll be subsequent requests to do specific segments later on then.
Possibly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, great job.
It looks as if you have both types of kiosks being made by the same company.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby, how did you pick them? Where are they from?
The consultant that we spent money on recommended them highly. She gave us choices and then chose which she thought was best. Having done this in other towns and knowing the kind of needs that we have, and the best for volunteer installation, et cetera. So it was all on the consultants being able to identify the best for us.
Where are they from?
The consultant from BSC.
No, the Derby.
Oh.
The Kirby.
Kirby.
That I don't know, but I have it at home, and
I can get back to you.
I can get that
There was
information.
no local company applying, or?
I'm not quite sure. I forget, but I have that information.
Other questions, comments? Members of the committee or the public? Okay,
No, that's great.
thanks very much,
Yeah.
Elaine. Best wishes.
Yeah.
Meeting you.
And
Welcome forward.
while we're on the subject of trails, I've included in everybody's packet a Superior Court decision related to a trails project by the town of Norwell, which essentially involved the construction of a sidewalk that was going to link other parts of the town and pedestrian and bike transportation together. There were significant safety aspects to it. And unfortunately, the Superior Court did not see this as a trail and indicated that it wasn't eligible for CPA funding. Whether that's going to be appealed or not, it's too early to tell at this point in time. But I wanted everybody to have the opportunity to review that decision. It's a good backdrop of how CPA recommendations can be challenged in the courts and the way that the courts take a look at them. This is only about the second or third case, I think, involving CPA funds that has come down in the Commonwealth. So it's always interesting to see when one does come down.
Bob, was that unusual for the court to get involved? It wasn't an administrative decision by people.
It was a so-called 10 taxpayer suit. Actually, it was an 11 taxpayer suit. They had 11 individuals from the town of Norwell that didn't believe that this was an appropriate expenditure by the town. And if somebody wants to challenge a town expenditure, and they get 9 other people to go along with them, they can file suit, and that's what happened here.
Just interesting, it wasn't a decision by people administering the program, it was an outside judicial review.
Right, the town of Norwell town meeting had voted the funds. They actually had an opinion, both from the Department of Revenue and from town council, that this was an appropriate expenditure.
Recreational path.
And so it sounds like the Norwell CPC had done a fair amount of due diligence about this project. It was not an inconsiderable project. I think it was $1.5 million for about 3 miles of paved pedestrian and bikeway along Route 123.
It's good.
So,
It was breezing through it. I'd read it in the paper, actually. I didn't read the pin, but they seem to rely, at least in part, on the definition the legislature has of trails. So interesting. We'll see what happens with the appeal process and maybe the legislative process in the future.
yeah, I did feel reading this opinion that if anything, it buttressed this particular trails project that we have in Hingham. This is exactly the kind of foot-beaten path that this Superior Court judge felt was the kind of trail that the CPA was involved with. So if anything, that decision supports the eligibility of the current trail improvement project.
I think the item in the, I read about this in the paper too, and I think they said if they had moved this into sort of the woods, then it might be considered more recreational, but having it right on the road, looking just like a sidewalk, does tend to make you wonder a little bit.
So, I think we remain a little ahead of schedule. Is Lisa gonna present?
I saw them outside a minute ago. Does someone want to walk outside? I saw some Second Parish Church people out there, so they walked by.
Could start it, we could wait.
See, I saw them out there. I knew they were too tiny.
Such a fine line of definition. Recreation is. Sometimes worthwhile things are made harder to do than it's intended.
Get yourself organized.
You're ahead of schedule.
Yeah, we're ahead of schedule, so you're right on time. You're early.
Categorical approach to things.
Do you want help?
Want a hand? We can just pass them down.
Yeah, I'll make sure Vicki gets one. You both need one over here?
I'll give you one of these. How about that? She's all set. Gave you one.
You need one of those, right? Yes.
She's all set. Thank you.
Oh, might as well just put it.
Yeah.
But do me a favor, take another one. I was handing it to you,
Here's the.
Lisa, this is a public, and it's being videotaped so that anybody can watch it at home. So, welcome back, Lisa Shetty, and your supporters from the Second Parish Church.
This is Jean Raymond, who's the architect that's been working with us on the project.
Mr. Raymond, welcome. And so if you just identify yourself for the folks at home and perhaps give them, I mean, you know that we've worked on this project for a few years now, so, but if you could give the people at home an overview, that would probably be helpful, and then bring us up to date.
Okay. So my name is Lisa Shetty. I'm representing Second Parish. I'm the property manager for the church. And what we've proposed in previous grant cycles is a handicap access entrance to the church. And it's come to be on the south side after a lot of conversations with the committee that was the best location for it. It was the most close to the entrance, or the same entrance that the general public uses, so that's more desirable in terms of a handicap access. We're not putting anybody who needs to use that access on a different location. And so one of the handouts has our first proposal and our preferred proposal on there, which is an enclosed structure, which would allow access to both Cushing Hall and the sanctuary. And both areas are pretty much equally used by the congregation and the public. Where we've come to now, as we've fleshed out this project some more, is that because of the current size of the church, not so much because of the addition that we're adding, is that the fire code would call for sprinklers to be added. So to try to get around that, we're appealing to the sprinkler board next week on the 13th to try to get a variance to not have to install sprinklers. And our basis for that is because we're not adding a ginormous addition that's designed to increase the functional capacity of the church. It's simply an entrance, and that's it. So we're hoping, based on that, and also because of the historic nature of the church, so there is a sort of a clause in the ruling of the sprinkler board that allows for variances because of a historic nature of a building. That's never been tested. So we're the first ones to appeal based on that. So we're hoping the thicker packet that you have is that appeal that we hired a consultant to put together for us that talks about how the design that Jean has come up with is meant to fully integrate our addition with the church and look seamless like it's always been there. And that is our hope. But what we've also prepared for you, which is the single color copy, is a Plan B, because we're so committed to getting this access this year, in some way, shape, or form. And if it can't be an enclosed edition, then it's going to have to be an open edition. But we're hoping that it can be covered at least. So that will help us with weather conditions and things of that nature.
Lisa, just ask a question in terms of seeing this new design. Is there also sort of a cost savings by doing it?
So no, actually, it's going to be about the same, because the beauty of the enclosed edition, and that is something that we'll probably talk to the sprinkler board about as well, is that allows us to come in at grade level with the driveway. So currently there's a steep downgrade as you enter into Cushing Hall, and the enclosed addition with a foundation allows us to come in at that grade. So if we put on a more of a porch-like exterior addition, we have to grade the driveway to that level. So the costs that are in the enclosed addition are more for like heating and plumbing and electricity, and those costs would get transferred to site work, basically. So we expect and anticipate the cost to be about the same.
Because you're in the Grand Patty's Historic District, have you gone before the historic?
We did, yeah. So for the enclosed edition, and we will talk to the sprinkler board about that as well, we already have the Historic Districts Commission's, forget the terminology, but it's the appropriate certificate of appropriateness, maybe? Yeah.
Because it does show, even from the very direct front of the building, it will be sticking out a little bit in either case.
It's very slight. I mean, the whole design is so that you can look at the building like front on, or come up from south to north and really not even notice it, as opposed to a full-on exterior or a metal ramp or something that was on the front of the building. You would definitely notice that.
It appears to be attached to the add-ons to the church, not the historic.
It's to
1742.
both, really. It kind of ties the sanctuary, which is the front part of the church, to Cushing Hall, which is the back part of the church.
So it's not touching the oldest part of the church.
It is,
Oh, it is?
yes,
Right back.
slightly, because,
Because that's where the handicap access
the
is
longest
into the
ramp that goes
sanctuary.
up goes into the sanctuary,
Up against it.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
The only alteration in the sanctuary is you lose.
I'm sorry?
You just lose a couple seats in the,
So in the
corner.
front of the sanctuary, when you first enter in, there's 2 square pews on either
Yeah,
side, the north side and the south side. And those square pews would become more like single pews,
Yeah.
basically. So there's a little alteration to the one on the south side, where the
but very,
handicap.
very, very slight,
Right.
just allowing people to pass through.
Yeah, it's not really used for anything like functional at this point, I would say, just because it is sort of, at some point, that was probably the coveted
Yeah.
pew area for a family maybe, but
And I've been to services and people don't sit there much, they sit where they can see.
no, not really. It's used more for props and things like that, so.
Could you give us the numbers on the current total project cost and where your fundraising stands?
Yep, so either way, we anticipate the total project cost to be somewhere in the $175,000 range. We've raised and have committed $90,000 to that, so we're still working on fundraising for that. But it's kind of hard to fundraise until I get a word from the sprinkler board which way it's gonna go. And then we can say to people, like, this is absolutely what it's going to look like.
So the amount of CPC funds that you're looking for then, are they
85.
85? Okay.
No matter what, sprinkler or not.
Yep, because like I said, the costs just get transferred to site work.
What was the trigger for this, what was the trigger for the requirement for the, was it the area
Speak
or
to that a
the
little bit. What was the trigger for the
the need for the
sprinklers?
sprinkler? Or cost?
These steps.
If there's a building anywhere in the Commonwealth, this is a fairly recent law, that is 7,500 square feet or larger. It doesn't have to be sprinkled unless you add to the building. So even if you wanted to add 10 square feet to the building, you've triggered the requirement to sprinkle the existing building.
Regardless of the dollar threshold or the area of the building.
That's correct. That's correct. So in this case, I think the church is somewhere around 9,000 square feet, and the addition is 375 square feet. So it's about 4% of the area, but it still triggers that black and white threshold.
So you're going to proceed with one design or the other, regardless of what happens with the appeal?
Correct.
But
And
it-
Jean, I think, is fairly confident that we can turn around that design so we can meet our targeted construction date.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We know
And,
enough about it.
and the second design, you'd have to go before the Historic Districts Commission on that one?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I know you mentioned the building, Plan B looks much simpler, but you're mentioning all that site work, and is that okay with CPC funds to do site work like that? If it's not for handicap ramp?
Well, I think if it's related to ADA access, that it probably is permissible, yeah.
Okay. My question would just be, since we are voting on the 13th and not until, officially till that night, I assume they have to give you a ruling, so we'll have a ruling before we actually take a vote. I mean, I'll speak for myself, because obviously we really want to support this, but I'm always more comfortable knowing what it is we're supporting, so
Yeah.
it's just helpful, is that?
I will text you. I'll be on the road, so texting you, giving you updates.
Will they actually make a decision right then and there?
I'm under the assumption that they will. We can't control what they're going to do, but I don't see them continuing a hearing. I would think that they're very familiar with our team and our code consultants, so, we expect a fairly positive reading.
Is that the way they usually proceed? They decide right then and there?
I haven't been before them before. Most of the state boards tend to do that, whether it's plumbing or handicapped access, so I'm going to make that assumption.
And again, I just want to speak for myself. I'm thrilled that you came in with a Plan B, because that's what I was very concerned about. That was my questions all along, that as much as we want to support something, if we don't have a Plan B, it's still, we are supporting something that we don't even know what it is. So good for you for doing all that you needed to do to get that forward. It looks great. I know the church well. I think you've got a plan either way, so good for you.
Plan B looks like almost
Wonderful.
a historic cloister.
Right. Very nice job.
It's a nice Plan B.
Well done.
Oh, we have
too.
There's a certain amount of permanence to the enclosed structure that I like in
Yep.
art, and would
Yep.
just like to go with that. But I am comfortable with what we've come up with for Plan B, that, with appeals to congregation, appeal to the public and the neighbors.
So with Plan B, if someone is in a wheelchair, they go under the pediment and they're at the level of the hall in the back?
Correct.
Okay, and then if somebody wants to go to the church, they basically go up the ramp, which is outside but covered, into the church?
Exactly.
Okay.
You'd be allowed to hang like plastic or something during cold months and things in the openings.
Yeah, I don't know if I really want to do that. I think it looks to me like.
Speak into the mic, please.
Sorry. It looks to me like there is, kind of like I was noticing when I came into Town Hall, that they have the brick wall that sort of protects the ramp as it goes up. So it's not full protection, but it is somewhat protected. So that it looks like there is kind of a siding that goes along, what is that, like knee height?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
It's clapboards.
So there would be less to worry about and less to maintain. I don't think it would be a big issue. Certainly not as much as if there wasn't a roof.
Do you have actual construction bids at this point?
No, because,
These are based on estimates?
yeah, so we did have one builder that we consulted with to get a reasonable cost estimate, and it's the same either way. But we couldn't ask somebody to put it out to a full bid because that's a lot of work in of itself. And so if it wasn't a project that was going to be firm, then it's a lot to ask somebody to give it to their subcontractors and everybody to do all of that work to come up with something and then say, oh, we changed it. Like, can you come up with this one now? So I didn't really feel comfortable. I felt comfortable with the estimate that the builder gave us because he's experienced and he knows what he's doing and, you know, took a line by line kind of consideration. But, you know, once we have a vote from the sprinkler board, then if Gene needs to, he can get the, if it's Plan B, then he can get that to a buildable plan where we can bid that out.
I seem to remember that we thought that maybe the cost would actually come in less. Less than the 175, once it goes out to bid. I mean, if that is the case,
That's always the hope.
how would we look at splitting the savings?
It's a question I haven't really thought about, but I would think that, you know, I would offer to you to do like the hard construction kind of costs and, you know, we would shoulder the burden of all of the softer things that are involved in doing a project like this. So, you know, there's painting, there's lighting, you know, things that aren't directly related. I know you don't like to cover those usually anyway, so.
Well, again, with ADA access, a lot of that is not really an issue. I mean, you obviously have to protect the wood and
Yep.
and the rest of it. So I'm not seeing an eligibility problem with that as I sit here.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any design contingency or any estimate? Do you have an estimate contingency, 10 or 15%?
Yes,
Just for-
that is
or
built, that was
unforeseen?
built into it when we
When we did it
consulted
earlier.
with the builder.
Yeah.
And we would ask anybody that gives us an estimate to do that as well.
I guess what I'm asking is, if the actual construction cost comes in at, say, 140,000, as opposed to 175,000, and there's a $35,000 savings, would you see that $35,000 coming back to the CPC?
Yeah, I mean, from the way I understand that it works is that we invoice you, you know, to get reimbursed. So, you know, we have
Well,
90,
it could go in, I mean, in fairness to you, it could go in different directions.
Right.
You know, we could split it proportionally. We wouldn't want to, the CPC wouldn't want to commit, I don't think, to anything beyond the $85,000.
right.
But,
I would think we would get the
I'm
money
just-
back. I don't think we would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back into our, you know, like, that gets clawed back, right? Because it was money that wasn't needed
Right.
for the
Mhm.
project, so I wouldn't think it would be split. Just my,
They raised the money. I mean, they've already committed to the.
okay.
We wouldn't spend it in the first place.
all right. It sounds like there's a
A
consensus. Okay, any other questions or comments?
I think the only comment I would also have is I like both schemes. I like your idea about the permanence of the enclosed addition and also it's less maintenance. But it's interesting that the structure, the enclosing roof structure, seems to be about the same in terms of scope on either one. But I can see where the grading, whether you'd want to have a good contingency in the grading, an excavation portion of the cost on the open porch ramp because you're going down further and there's bedrock there at the
Right.
entrance drive. So I could see where the unknowns in that area would really want you to protect that contingency.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
And the ground,
Yeah, nice.
the grade is level with Cushing Hall,
Yes.
and- which would have been created by filling in at the other site. Yeah.
I think Gene can speak to more about that. So he's asking about the grading that comes into Cushing Hall, like as you grade down, right? So it's level on the other side as well, or do we have to backfill? Is that what you're asking?
No, I mean, it's close enough, I guess, that you can go right in level, whereas with Plan A, the ground dips and goes up again, and the project would have filled it.
Yeah, Plan A, yeah, we're going in at the high point of the
Yeah,
driveway
yeah.
almost. And then what we want to do with Plan B is lower the driveway to the Cushing Hall,
floor.
which involves some ledge removal, as Gary was mentioning.
Thanks
So
for doing
that
that.
would make the hill that goes down to the back part of the parking lot a little less.
A little
of
less steep,
yeah.
yes. That's correct.
Any other comments or questions? Any quarter? Lisa, thank you and your team for all the great work you've
Thank
done.
you. I'll keep you posted.
They're gonna pass or not?
All right, thank you.
All right.
The waiver will be.
Make history, you'll be the first one that wins the appeal.
Yeah.
And we're on to our housing articles with Tim White.
Just texted me. Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
We are, a lot of exciting things going on with the Housing Trust Committee, and we can't be doing it without you, honest to goodness. I mean, the support that CPC has given has been absolutely terrific. We just completed discussion on our latest opportunity funding proposal. We have an offer to purchase that's been accepted. We are now in the inspection stage, and we've got some assistance coming in from the town to make sure our inspection is done to satisfy ourselves as to the condition of the house. We've already got approval from the Board of Selectmen, also assisting us in the progress, so.
Jim, you're actually speaking to a home TV audience tonight.
Oh, okay.
Not
My
live.
goodness, fabulous.
So, if you could
Well, let me
just
just-
identify yourself and your role.
Tim White, Chair of the Hingham Affordable Housing Trust.
Thank you.
All right, and we have an article here requesting your assistance for the Whiting Street property. So I'm not live? Oh, yeah.
We are live now.
All right.
Okay. Actually, our first one on the agenda, Tim, was the opportunity funding proposal,
Okay,
which was for $100,000.
right, which is a nice follow-up as to this, the offer to purchase that we already have in place. It's, by the way, the offer right now is that's been accepted, subject to inspections, is for $282,500.
So that's money that's coming back to the Affordable Housing Trust?
We'll purchase it for that.
Oh, you're going to purchase it for that?
We'll purchase for that,
Okay.
subject to the inspection. The sale, once we have it in a, we go through the DHCD, local initiative unit process, and assuming it's approved by the state as a additional unit for our subsidized inventory, we will then be able to sell it for $196,000. So it will cost the town approximately $100,000 to create an affordable housing unit to add to our subsidized inventory.
Do we have to invest in any improvements in the building before you sell it?
That is what we're going through right now
Okay.
in respect to the inspections and.
Okay.
And you had one unit, Tim, I believe, that is in the process of being sold?
No, we sold.
Oh, it has been sold.
We sold 4 Beals Cove last spring, last summer.
So for the...
I think we gave you, as a matter of fact, those numbers should be attached. Those are attached to the application, now that I think of it. So if you turn to... There's a spreadsheet there, yeah, which I may not have with mine, because this was... But just to give you a summary of it, that unit, we purchased for $158,000. We sold it for the $124,500. And the breakdown of what we had for additional costs incurred, we had some carrying costs, the monthly condominium fee, we had some minor improvements of $2,500. We had closing costs, and then we had our consultant fees, MCO, which is the marketing agent approved by DHCD to sell affordable units. So that unit cost the town less than $100,000 to create it.
I know you're always giving us tutorials on housing, which we appreciate.
Yep.
How was the sales price determined?
DHCD
So that's set by the state?
set by the state. That's right.
In order for this to be an affordable unit?
It does, and that's a really good question, because we're looking at a house in Hingham to buy for $282,000, and I'm sure that we all know that there are very few and far between in the town of Hingham that you can buy for $282,000. In fact, our point person for opportunity funding is Mike McDonald, has done great research for us, and the next available houses that are out there are $400,000. And we're going to reach a breaking point where it doesn't make sense to spend so much money for one particular affordable housing unit. So it's not an easy task to be able to find these properties, and Mike's done a great job for us.
Jim, I think I've lost track of something. I thought we were talking about the house on Whiting Street that was being donated.
No, that's the next, we haven't got that to that yet.
Okay, so
Jeff.
this is another one.
This is the opportunity funding, that's right.
And where's this house?
Nokomis Street,
Oh, I'm sorry, I knew that.
Crow Point.
Thank you.
My neighborhood.
So how are you buying a house if you don't have the money? Like, you don't know if we're going to vote the money yet, so how are you buying the house?
Because we do have the money. We have the money, like we got the return money that we received from the Beal Cove sale.
So, I mean, not to jump ahead, but couldn't you use the $100,000 you're theoretically getting this year to pay for the Whiting Street property?
We could, but we'd like to have the additional opportunity to purchase additional units as well.
Even though you're running out of a runway to buy houses that are affordable. You know, in other words, you're saying it's going to be really difficult to buy another house at that price point, because I'm amazed you could find something for under $300,000 in Hingham. But given the fact the prospects are cloudy, and you have a property that you could use the $100,000 on, why not use it for that property? Which is a bird in hand, you already have that.
Yeah, I mean, what I've learned coming before you folks over the last couple of years is that you like us to separate out our requests so that it's nice and simple for you to follow and understand, and easy for us to identify what we're looking for. That's the reason why we separated out the Whiting Street request from the opportunity funding.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't have to be two. You could say, give me the $100,000 and I'll put it toward this house that we have currently that's sitting vacant and is ready to get work done on it.
We certainly could have done that, but I think at that point I probably would have requested 150.
Well,
To be honest with you.
you've got 124, and you're asking for 100, which is 224.
Right. And
you need another 60-odd to buy the house?
Right, but I
Is
think
that going to be financed,
it's,
or?
In respect to every request that we come before you folks, is the trust does have funding that we invest ourselves as well, that we're willing to invest ourselves. And I don't want to jump ahead to Whiting, but the Whiting Street project, you'll see we gave you estimates that we received from a licensed contractor as to what needs to be done. In reviewing it with our representative on your committee, Gary suggested that we should perhaps have a little extra percentage in there for potential additional charges, which made perfect sense. And we're more than happy to have you folks authorize us to have a little bit more money, but we're also willing to invest our own funds into that property. And it's not just CPC funds that the trust has. We have funds that have come in from other sources over the course of the years.
Can I ask a question, Tim? My question is, because I don't understand affordable housing, why does it take, for example, this Beals Cove, over a year to sell a property? I mean, now Whiting Street, clearly we know needs some work, but, I mean, once the money is there, hopefully it's done within a few months' time. I would think it's turned around on the market. Why wouldn't it be? I don't understand. Is there something that goes on that we don't understand that takes a year to accomplish?
I think that what went on with the Beals Cove property was something that the trust didn't understand. That this was our virgin trip down the local initiative unit program. And so, and it got tied up a little bit in the state because of the change of administrations. So that there was somewhat of a delay in getting the approval of DHCD because of the change in administrations. So it took us longer to do the first one than we expected to take the second one. However, I will tell you, just so that everybody understands, is that because there is that additional approval process, we don't want this to make this purchase unless we know we're going to have an additional subsidized unit added to our inventory. And that does take additional time beyond the scope of just going through the offer and the sale.
Right, but my point is you're coming back each year. I mean, we're here a year from now regardless of what you do.
Right.
And my question is if something doesn't sell within a year, you can't very well turn over that money into the opportunity funding, which you're telling us about. So that helps us understand when we're talking about if you're selling these properties, the money should be coming back to you, and therefore, not that we don't want to give you money, but at least there's money there that you should be able to keep moving along. That would be our goal, is that you do these projects and get to move them forward so that there's a process. Independently, right.
No, absolutely. But
Okay.
again, Beals Cove was number one. It's
Okay.
the first time down that road.
Right.
But in the net, in terms of the equation, the properties aren't sold at a profit. The properties are subsidized
Right.
at 30%, plus or minus 35%. So that 35% is a opportunity cost that has to be replenished every year outside of the current funding that exists.
That's correct.
Exactly.
That's correct. Those are the limitations that DHCD sets on. Yep.
Anything else you wanted to
Nope.
say about opportunity funding?
That's it on opportunity
And
funding.
any questions, any other questions from members of the committee or the public? Okay, and our next,
We have one in the back.
oh, I'm sorry, Donna. Donna, could you speak into a microphone and identify yourself and,
Donna Smallwood, 32 Brewster Road. Tim, I'd welcome having HAHT's perspective on, in an ideal world, how much money should be in the Opportunity Fund, so that on the one hand, you can grab any opportunities that come along in a year, but on the other hand, we're keeping all of the CPC dollars working as much as possible. And I know it's difficult because of this timing of selling properties, but, you know, have you guys talked about how much of a cushion you need?
We really haven't, other than the first time we came in, we kind of got an idea of what the value of the properties were, what the cost of the properties were going to be. So from a perspective as to how much we should have sitting in the bank to make sure that we can buy a piece of property that comes up on the market, we really haven't got a number for you. No, we don't. And the other thing is, I really think is where, just to go back what Kathleen said, is that we're going to get to a point where we're at a tipping point where this is a two-bedroom we're looking at right now. The first unit we bought was a one-bedroom. We can get to a three-bedroom. Some decent-sized family housing. Affordable units in town would be terrific. But as you increase the size of the property, the price increases. Yet the allowable sale price doesn't seem to jump up proportionately. So we're still working on that. It's still a work in progress, but hopefully we'll keep finding good properties, and this one we're excited about.
Can I just ask another question too, just a general question? How many more units do we have to build, acquire to meet whatever the acceptable number is at 10%?
A little over 300.
We're never going to do that.
Doesn't
I
that,
don't know about that.
doesn't that depend too on who is doing the counting and?
Well, yes, and
what's-
we definitely need to qualify that. The chair is right on that, is that it's the town's position that we're at the 10%. DHCD's position is that we need a little over 300 units.
That's a lot of properties.
Yeah, big discrepancy.
It is,
That
but
number, is not a finite one, as Tim said, so it may be less than 300, but I certainly, it's certainly a sizable amount.
Right.
And.
Yep.
If I could make a comment, I think we sometimes get focusing too much on 40B, because the point of these programs isn't to avoid people having access to 40B for good projects. It's to avoid getting bad projects forced on you, but mainly it's to meet a housing need, and what you're doing is that. And I think it's going to turn out. I think we're acknowledging that we don't have the 10% because of the refigured rules for the continuing care facilities that didn't apply in the first place, so that Linden Ponds is only partially affordable. But regardless, it seems unfortunate to get focusing on what can we do to get 10% and make these things go away, because these things are meant to be a constructive tool.
Jim Watson, housing first, last, and always.
No, open
there's
space too.
And he's absolutely right. The whole idea that we're all in this for is to create affordable housing. We know we need more affordable housing in our town. We absolutely need it. The reality of life is that we also have a statute out there called 40B, and we need to deal with that as well. But when push comes to shove, everybody down the hall, where I need to get back fairly promptly to my fellow trust members, we're interested in creating affordable housing in our community.
I just think though, but I mean, like if you're just doing shotgun one at a time at $100,000 a pop, times 300, I mean, was like $300 million.
But that's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is, for instance, we have the potential of a selectmen's parcel to get multiple units on a selectmen's parcel. There are other opportunities that have come across our radar screen that allow us to potentially build additional units, perhaps at Lincoln School Apartments.
It's a good segue to our next agenda item, the selectmen's parcel.
So I don't really have anything else to add on to what I've submitted to you folks. We actually have the consultant with us right now.
The education of the people at home that may be watching this, that
Sure.
want to understand, could you briefly?
The selectmen's parcel is off of Beale Street. It's over 10 acres of land. It is a property that the town has set aside for affordable housing. We have hired a consultant to assist us in that venture, and we are meeting with the consultant now and making some determinations as to what direction we're going to take that.
And the extra $25,000 that you're asking for is basically to further that consulting process, to get to the point where you can put it out to bid for a specific number of units.
Correct.
Question, on the opportunity funding, is there an opportunity where someone is building, let's say, just for the sake of discussion, a 12-unit development, and within that 25% of the units have to be affordable, so that's 3 units. And those units would sell at those state-established rates. Is there an opportunity for the Housing Trust to have a partnership in a development like that, where you can get the 3 units and you can create a more favorable financial return on having an investment in a partnership in a development and yield more affordable units doing that? Or is that something that's on a smaller scale? Is that not feasible?
Well, our experience that I can talk about is what we did down at 80 Beale Street, which we went through the process of hiring a consultant to help us decide what would be best down that particular parcel. And then we did a 40B in town to create 8 units, of which 2 would be designated as affordable. What we as a trust did is, it would have been nice if we could have got 3 units out of it. We kind of were trying to negotiate for 3, but when you partnered or you ended up selling the proposal, that none of the proposals that came in were able to go any more than 2 units to make it financially feasible for them. So the real issue is the financial feasibility of the market rate component is what pays for the
I was just thinking that as a
affordable unit.
nonprofit, having capital that you could put into a partnership as a nonprofit, would that yield any reduction in cost to the private entity developing that would help you yield more units? I don't know if that's...
Gary, I don't know. We haven't had that opportunity come across our radar screen. When I get to Whiting Street, I'll talk about a little bit what we're planning on doing with Habitat for Humanity.
Sure.
I have just one other question about the selectmen's parcel. How much money is currently available? How much, what's the balance in the account right now?
That's probably attached to the application. What I can tell you is that it's not up to date because we literally just today received an invoice from the consultant that we haven't had a chance to review yet or approve.
Yeah, but just currently, how much is free cash in that account?
Well, let's see. You've got the consultant's contract is scheduled is at $175,000. In addition, we've committed $25,000 for design and permitting costs outside the contract. We've only spent up to the point of the application $15,000, but we actually now have an invoice for significantly more than that.
I had 15,000 remaining over and above the
committed part of the contract. I think that's what it is.
There's been a previous appropriations of 200,000.
Yeah, if you look at the application, it has the total amount already received, which is the 175 in 2014. And I just gave you the number on what the consultant's contract is, 175, 165. And then the request for 25,000, but the 25,000 we received.
25,000 was received last year.
Right, and we've also already expended approximately 15, and that was on, we got a 21E, 21E. We had a charge for putting the RFP out. We had a consultant come in to do the RFP for us.
So now I guess my question is, are you sitting on enough cash this year that you won't need money till next year? Because it seems like if you've only spent, if the check has just been written for 15,000 and you have 200,000 given to you, I'm not, in other words, should this wait till next year to ask for more money till this gets further along?
We certainly would be comfortable with that.
Okay, that's good to hear. So it could wait a year. We had a similar situation with the library with the master plan where they were hiring an archivist, they couldn't find an archivist, they had the money, they were carrying a very large balance. So then they said, no, we'll wait to the next year because we're sitting on enough. We did not spend the money as quickly as we thought we were going to spend it. So we put those dollars to work elsewhere. They came back the next year, they got the money. But as a result, the money that could have just been sitting in an account got to work, and then when it was ready to work, it came in, and then it was put to work. So not to say not to get it, but I don't think we really liked people sitting on big balances of cash that aren't working for the town.
But Catherine, it sounds as though the consultant is already at work. You've only gotten one bill so far, but
We have,
they're
yeah.
underway.
We've got an engineering bill for significant funds.
All right, I'm just saying, but just to consider that, in other words, yeah, the money will come, but you need it right this year, because again, if you're sitting on $150,000 that's just sitting there, that's not helping anybody, because other people are not getting money, and it's not going to work. But just a comment.
But they're underway.
Any other questions or comments on the selectmen's parcel?
So lastly, we have Whiting Street.
Last thing, we have Whiting Street.
I have Habitat for Humanity waiting for me to get back. What we're going to do with the Whiting Street property is, I talked a little bit about, if you look at your application, we have an estimate from a licensed contractor for approximately $50,000 in improvements that we need to make to the existing building to put it in a condition so that we can sell it as an affordable unit. We will proceed forward with the same LIP process that we went through for Beals Cove with the state. We'll do that simultaneously while we're making the improvements. Since this property was literally gifted to us as a result of the Derby Street 40B, that it makes sense for us to proceed immediately with it.
Jim, does that mean the sales price needn't be much more than this work?
Oh, yeah. The sales price, I think, trying to remember whether there's a two-bedroom or three-bedroom off the top of my head. I don't remember.
It's two now.
Two-bedroom. So that's going to be $196,000. So it'll be the same, just the same as the Nakoma Street property.
So you'll make $100,000 on this one.
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, which obviously would go back into opportunity funding.
That's for the improvements.
Are you asking for 50 or 60,000?
We asked for 50, and then Gary, in his wisdom, suggested we should ask for 60 because of the 7 to 10% contingency that we should be looking at.
Yeah, wasn't there extra electrical work?
The electrical work was not included in the estimate that you have in your possession from MCI, and it will require electrical work. Now, just as an added bonus with this property, as an added bonus to this property is that we're looking to subdivide it, do a friendly 40B, and turn the second property over to Habitat for Humanity and allow them to build an additional affordable housing unit. So instead of getting one, we'll get two.
If I can make a quick comment as one of the people that visited the site, the house is pretty solid, and it has a full basement with windows on the low side. So there's a lot more livable space potentially.
It's got
than
good bones.
2 bedrooms.
Got good bones.
It didn't creak or groan.
What do you think the timeline is on Whiting Street in terms of getting it to market?
Well, like Roger, we'll probably get the work done by the spring.
Sure.
Yeah, by the spring and...
Spring of 2017?
2016.
2016?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll get the work done by 2016. Hopefully the DHCD process we can complete by the summer. So we'll have it on the market in the fall.
So the 60,000 is what, we're reimbursing the housing trust for?
We're paying the contractor.
But you wouldn't have this money appropriated until town meeting plus.
Right.
So you think in the next,
I suppose
between,
that's
between April and June, the work's gonna be done?
We do. We actually have asked them to, we did ask them to put us at the end of they're doing a number of projects for the town. We asked MCI to do ours at the end of that, not just in funding respect, but for the practical reasons of working with Habitat for Humanity. So.
Was there any I mean, I just saw the land recently, and I mean, the house looks in really rough shapes. I haven't been inside of it, but usually with any building thing, land is the big piece of it. And has there been any thought of like leveraging that land by, say, knock the house down and put in like multiple units, like 4 to 6 unit, like townhouse type things or something, as opposed to just the idea of just 2 single houses? You could double or triple the capacity there with that nice piece of land. And it seems like, you know, again, like almost like you've done on some of the other properties where you're going to have somebody come in and build something brand new, you know, not having to find, I think with an old property, there's a lot of risk. You know, you start opening up the walls. We've also seen those TV shows, home improvement shows, something's wrong. So at least if you were to start fresh, you'd have something that's fuel efficient, modern, attractive, doesn't have to be super fancy, but, I mean, why not take advantage of that land that you have, which is so valuable and which is so hard to find?
I don't know that the land, Roger, you wanna?
Well, as it tends to be with a lot of developments, sewer is always a big issue. So if you don't have sewer, you have to create a septic system. So what the Affordable Housing Trust did already is they hired Gary James, a consulting engineer, produced a site plan to see how they get the most benefit out of the land. And I know that's something you guys are discussing right now. There are also restrictions associated with the riverfront and setback requirements that have to be considered. The plans right now are circulating on the second floor between all the permitting offices to make sure that this proof of concept will work in terms of permitting. And so I think that the folks at Trust, they're working to see the most benefit they can get out of that.
Absolutely. I think what you want to understand is that from every approach, the Trust has taken advantage of professional input in it, not just the engineering, but the town. You know, you talked about, you don't know what you're going to find, and I said that this house has good bones. I don't know whether the house has good bones or not, but our building inspector and Roger and all the folks that we've had who have come up and helped us and looked and inspected that house have told us that it's in great shape, and that the numbers that I told you that we need to get it in a marketable condition are accurate.
I just want to ask, do you think we will know by January 13th when we vote for this that a Habitat for Humanity project will be underway on the other, I mean, I don't mean started, but that they will have agreed? I mean, I just think, having seen the site and knowing that there is this, it would be nice to know that what we are, not just helping that house, but knowing that they're going to have a friend next door. I want them to have a friend that lives right next door, because not too far away is a pretty upscale condominium complex. So it would be nice to know that we are giving this affordable unit, I don't mean giving, but selling it to somebody, and they've got neighbors next door.
As I said earlier, we actually have Habitat in with us.
Here, okay,
but
good.
this isn't their first trip in. They are very excited about this project.
Yes.
We got to a point where Habitat would love to have taken the whole property, but then we don't get anything back to kind of try to build off of. And that's why, after working with Gary James and the Trust, that we decided that we would keep the house. We would fix the house up at a modest cost and then sell the house and get return to the Trust so that we can build more affordable housing. We will work with them on a friendly 40B to subdivide the property, and then they will build the second house. We will not expend a penny to build that second house.
I'm happy about that.
Just a quick comment, Tim. I want to thank you and the Trust for the work you do, because I know you've come before us a number of times, and being around the town and speaking to people, there's such an acute need. Maybe it's not as visible as you may think for affordable housing in this town, not only for families, but for older folks in this town. And it may be a small process, what you're doing in terms of numbers, and maybe it's up to the board and other people to deal with the bigger picture with whatever those numbers are. But Jim is right, and I know it's not easy, the work you do, and I know the projects you came in front of the board, and we've been supportive of your efforts, and I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, and I'll just say it again. The Trust can't do it without the Board of Selectmen's support, without CPC support, and we went through the zoning, the 40B with the 80 Beale Street, without the zoning board support and the community support, most importantly.
Tim, is this a project that would go ahead if the CPC doesn't recommend funding?
Yes, we will. We're going to figure out a way to do it.
Jim, could you say again the expected sales price, or is that too soon?
196.
Could you say, what?
196,000.
Okay, so somebody making 80% of the median, paying 30%, can manage that. Great.
And conceivably, Bob, what could happen is that if we don't get the funding, then we may revisit the deal we're working with Habitat for Humanity, which would mean we don't get any return at all. The town gets no return.
Okay, I just have something in the back of my mind about the statute about not funding things that are otherwise the part of the town budget.
I'm sorry?
There is some part of the statute that I'm trying to identify that raises a question in my mind about funding something if it's already been budgeted.
It hasn't been, what do you mean budgeted?
Well, has the town committed to the contractor to do the project?
No, no. So the contract itself, I think what you're asking is whether or not we've entered into contract for a job for which there is no funding, which is something we can't do. So the contract that's in place is not exclusive to this project. We can use, it's an open-ended contract. It's one that can be the time and materials or based on a lump sum. Tim's work, among other jobs that take place in the town of Hingham that required trade work, building trades work, necessitated that we generate a contract to reflect that. So I think maybe what you're referring to is that we can't enter into contract with a contractor for a project that does not have funding, and we did not do that for this particular project.
We do not have a contract to do the work that you have in your package.
Okay, the town hasn't already funded this work? No, okay, all right, that's, all right, good.
It's ready, but it's not funded.
That's, I just wanted that clear in my mind, thanks.
Good question.
But to go back to your question is that if we don't get the funding, Plan B might very well be is just to turn the property over to Habitat for Humanity, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but it would mean that the town would not receive the sales receipts from when we sell the Whiting Street property, which would be significant.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions or comments? Good luck with Habitat for Humanity. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Good job, Tim.
And that concludes our agenda for tonight. Tomorrow night, in addition to what's on the agenda, we also should, at least at the end of the night, have a brief discussion of Heritage Museum funding, because that is something we're going to have to commit to in some amount this year. And just to, does anybody have any, Paul, this is your first year with us, and what we've done in the past, before our final votes are cast a week from now, is to facilitate that process, is we have each as individuals put together our own recommendations and have given them to Carol in isolation, so that nobody sees what anybody else has done.
She's gonna be sitting in the gazebo out on Button Island.
And she ultimately will turn them over to me for tabulation, and we'll use that as a map to get through the voting at our final voting
So when would that be?
meeting. That's a week from tonight.
So when do you want us to have these?
We'd have to have them probably by Monday. Yeah, Monday would be the latest date. So,
that this tomorrow night's meeting will be up and running hopefully by Saturday morning.
Oh, good.
You can watch.
Okay, good, thank you.
we'll miss you tomorrow. We know
I'll
you'll
miss
be
you. I'll
otherwise
miss you all
engaged.
tomorrow, yes.
And any questions or comments about that voting procedure? Everybody understands? Okay. Anything else for this evening? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks very much. Happy.